guys, everybody for joining us for tonight's presentation for parent self-care and well-being. My name is Daisy Carrera. I am the community liaison at District 76. So yeah, again, I just want to give thanks to everybody for joining us, and just a little bit of background before we get started on tonight's presentation. I just wanted to share, if some of you guys don't know me, just an introduction. I wish I could meet people in person, but within my position, just the things that I've been able to do, initiatives that our district has been able to do to help support our students and our families during distance learning. Just working with everybody's department within our school district in the beginning of the year, we were grateful and blessed enough to be able to support our students and with our IT department, get students headphones, hotspots, student desks, food, school supplies, and more, even before the school year began. So it's definitely a collaborative effort. And just kind of goes to show how much our staff goes above and beyond for our students to make sure that they have their basic essentials at home. We also have within our district mobile monthly food events. We've had our Thanksgiving and coat drive, and then an upcoming holiday event in partnership with District 75, 79, and 120. But the purpose for tonight's presentation, before I start talking a lot about other things, is I actually, when meeting with parents, whether it be, virtually or just talking to them when I see them during food events, one of just like the underlying messages that I've kind of seen was just frustration within our parents, stress, anxiety. And I think that we're all feeling it, whether you're a parent or not. So that's another reason why I also encouraged our staff to join, which I do see that some of them are in this call tonight. I scheduled a meeting with my cousin, who is a therapist, a mother, an overall just amazing person, and just kind of brainstormed ideas with her on how we can bring awareness of mental health to our parents during distance learning. I strongly believe that by taking care of our parents, they're ultimately the ones that are taking care of our students and our teachers as well. So just having these conversations, open dialogue at home. She is also a product of District 76, again, and just an overall great person that I have the privilege of putting tonight's presentation together with for you guys, as well as Mr. Eric Hansen, our Director of Technology and Communications, by helping us, again, just make this possible. We were both very excited for this. I also want to thank our Board of Education, our administration, and our staff for all of the support, and our parents and everybody who just goes above and beyond. And again, tonight is really taking care of the mental health of the adults, of those who are caring for our students. So for now, I will go ahead and let Maria just give an introduction, and then we can get started.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that warm introduction, Daisy, and for all your efforts and the hard work that you've been doing and contributing to the district. So keep it up. I know it can't be easy, especially during these times, but you're doing a great job. So thank you. Yes, good evening and welcome. We will be talking about mental health today, and I'll share my PowerPoint presentation in a moment. But just a little bit about me. My name is Maria Rocha. I am a clinical social worker and a mental health therapist. So I'm happy to have the opportunity to speak with you all today on issues surrounding mental health. A little bit of my history. I am a product of District 76. So I attended Fairhaven School, Diamond Lake, West Oak, and then graduated from Mundelein High School. From there, I went on to study at Dominican University, and after graduating from there, went on to pursue my master's in social work from Loyola University, Chicago. I have about 10 years of experience both in Lake and Cook counties, helping people struggling with their mental health, struggling with specific physical health issues, and working closely with victims of domestic violence. Currently, I have a contract with North Shore University Health System where I see a handful of their patients every week, again, addressing mental health issues in a one-on-one therapeutic setting. And I also have my own private practice, Mind Over Matter Psychotherapy, located in Mundelein, where I see children, adolescents, and adults who are struggling and trying to manage their overall mental health. So again, welcome. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you all so that we can get the PowerPoint presentation going. All right. Okay, great. So we will have time after the presentation for open discussion, where I'll be able to answer questions. We can talk a little more about topics that were presented, or if there are just other questions outside of the presentation regarding mental health that need to be addressed. But I would like to hear from you all first. If you wouldn't mind sharing in that chat box, I'd like to know what it is that you are looking forward to learning from this in this presentation. I'll only wait about like a minute at most to see if anybody has anything that they'd like to share. I'll go ahead and kind of give a moment to do that.
Feel free to ask any questions, guys, in the chat. Any topics that you guys think she might cover or would like to see covered. She could probably just gauge it towards something.
And again, if there are no responses there, that's totally fine. As questions do come up, feel free to write them in throughout the presentation. We won't address them until after, but those questions and comments will be saved. I know I'm sharing my screen, Daisy, so has anything come in?
Somebody said stress management.
Okay, perfect. Yes, so we will definitely be covering specifically 7 effective coping strategies for stress management. I see it here now. So another person wrote in, I'm curious about what we can do to support our children and their mental health. Good, great. We'll definitely cover that in a moment. Actually, I start with a little bit on that, but again, if there are specifics, we can address those at the end. So this is exciting. Okay, so those were 2 great comments. Thank you for sharing. Okay, one more here. Issues with distractions and inability to move child to a different location in home. Yeah, that's a biggie too. Okay, great. So I'm hoping that we will address most of these questions and concerns, but if we don't, again, I will note them here and we'll definitely make sure to start with that during the open discussion segment. So thank you all for sharing. So as I mentioned, I will be speaking specifically on parent well-being and self-care today. Specifically 6 areas of self-care that in my personal experience helps maintain overall well-being. I'll also speak about effective coping skills to help manage stress that you can start practicing right away. Okay, so we start with what is well-being and self-care. So well-being refers to the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. And self-care is any activity that we do deliberately and intentionally to take care of our mental, emotional, and physical health. So good self-care is key to improved mood and it reduces anxiety. It's also key to good relationship with oneself and with others. So in addressing one of those comments, and Daisy did allude to it a little earlier here, we're talking about well-being and self-care because it's so important overall, but especially during these times, to prioritize yourself first so that you can best take care of others. I make it a point to speak with parents about the simple fact that if they are able to engage in healthy self-care activities and they use effective coping skills to manage stress on a regular basis, they actually mirror these healthy habits to their children without even knowing it, right? Children learn from their parents. And especially now, because while they're also learning at home with distance learning, they're in the presence more often, in the presence of their parents. And so if parents are able to take away to prioritize self-care and some effective coping skills for managing stress, you'll automatically mirror that to your children and your family, and they will also benefit from those healthy habits that you've adopted. So these topics, again, are very important, especially during these unprecedented times with the current health crisis that we're experiencing. We've encountered difficult times and our lives have changed drastically with COVID-19. This has caused us increased worry, emotional pain, stress and anxiety, and unpredictability. These last 9 months have not been easy. They've been difficult, to say the least. So self-care, again, is important to maintaining overall well-being. Oftentimes, as parents or just as human beings, we're bad at prioritizing our own self-care. We're either too focused on our jobs, busy looking after our children, keeping up with our homes, or studying, that our own self-care is often the last thing that we think about. So it's time to change this. Even more so, it's in the most busiest and most demanding of times, like right now, that we must prioritize self-care. In my work with patients therapeutically, I focus on 3 specific areas of self-care. In my experience, these are the most important because when we dedicate our time and our effort to these 3 areas, they help us manage the stress that we encounter every day. Remember, stress is inevitable. It's how we react to it and how we cope with it that matters. So the first one here, as you can see, is nutrition. So nourishing our bodies with healthy foods, eating a balanced diet, and eating regularly is very important to feeling good. So this includes eating balanced meals with fruits and vegetables, eating healthy snacks, drinking plenty of water, and having a routine or a schedule for meals, like every 2 to 3 hours, making sure we're feeding our body often so that we're able to maintain blood sugar levels and energy levels throughout the day. Nourishing our bodies will help improve mood, maintain concentration, and just helps us be more productive overall. The second self-care tip here is sleep. So we need to prioritize sleep. The consequences of poor sleep are far-reaching. So this includes brain functioning slowing down, memory is impaired, the frequency of accidents increases, and stress overall rises when we don't get enough sleep. There are also a number of associated health issues, which include weight gain or increased blood pressure. So in other words, sleep is important. It's recommended to sleep about 6 to 8 hours per night, but I also recommend creating some sort of nightly routine or bedtime routine right before bed. So this may include designating the same hour every night to begin this routine. The routine may include showering or washing your face, reading, writing, meditating, some sort of relaxing, calming activity right before going to bed. This routine helps the brain and the body wind down, and it offers the brain predictability and helps with sleep quality. I'm going to go over some other tips with sleep that might help. These tips are derived from Sleep Hygiene, which is a nice little info sheet that I like to provide when talking about sleep. And the link is actually at the end of this slide, which Daisy has made available, the entire presentation. So if you don't catch everything, that's okay. You'll have access to this info sheet and many more. So one other tip for healthy and effective sleep, don't force yourself to sleep. If after 20 minutes you find that you're just not falling asleep, get up and do something calming. Read, draw, write in a journal. It's going to be important to avoid computers, TVs, phones, any sort of screens, because they can be stimulating and will counteract your intention of falling asleep. Number 2, avoid caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine. Caffeine can stay in our body for up to 12 hours, and even decaf has traces of caffeine. So keep that in mind. Number 3 here, avoid napping. Number 4, use bed only for sleep. So if your body learns to associate bed with sleep, then you'll start feeling tired as soon as you hit the bed. So try to avoid doing homework, doing schoolwork, anything like that. Number 5, exercise and eating well. And we'll talk about exercise here in a moment. And number 6 is sleep in a comfortable environment. So this may include regulating the temperature or just making sure that you have comfortable pillows or blankets if you prefer to sleep warm. So making your sleep environment as comfortable as can be. Number 3 here is exercise. So being active helps lift our mood, reduces stress and anxiety, and improves physical health, and just gives us more energy. So finding an activity you enjoy and just doing it is recommended. Now, regular exercise does not have to be rigorous or time consuming. It can be if you like, and go for it. But 30 minutes a day is sufficient on most days to incorporate exercise into your daily routine. And you don't have to do it all at once. For some of us who find ourselves in a time crunch, you can do half of it in the morning, the other 15 minutes during the day, in the afternoon, or in the evening. So breaking it up is also something that could be helpful. When we prioritize exercise, we'll find that there are many mental health benefits. So studies have shown that people who do exercise regularly tend to be more resistant to mental health problems. So exercise can help treat mental health symptoms and help prevent future symptoms or episodes from occurring. And some of those mental health struggles include depression, anxiety, substance abuse, sleep issues, and then just other health issues that exercise helps improve our overall physical health, stress levels, low energy, or low self-esteem. So these are the 3 areas of self-care that for the most part we can control. And if we take the time to prioritize these, it will increase our overall well-being and help us to manage stress a little more effectively. So we move on to a few more self-care tips or recommendations that are also beneficial to overall well-being. Number 4 is time for yourself, prioritizing time for yourself. So we must dedicate time for ourselves and fit this into our daily routines. This means finding the time to focus on ourselves, explore our thoughts, reflect on our day, and refocus on our goals. If you guys haven't done so already, I definitely recommend having some goals for yourself, whether they're short-term goals, long-term goals, small goals, big goals. It's always important to continue striving and working on goals. So prioritizing time for yourself. For example, taking a relaxing bath, even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes, meditation, journaling, writing, or reading. It can also be as simple as taking some time in our busy mornings, just enjoy that cup of coffee, that cup of tea, or that glass of water outside in nature, if weather permits, or if not, just looking outside your window and just relaxing and not focusing on everything else that you have to do. Prioritizing time for self is important. We move on here to number 5, which is hobbies. So we all need a break from our demanding responsibilities. We must find ways to de-stress and do something that we enjoy. If you're trying to find a new hobby, just take a look at the slide here. The graphics depict a few of those you can choose from if you so wish. So with hobbies, perhaps nowadays we can't do many of the hobbies that we're used to doing because of the health crisis, but we can explore some new ones. Hobbies help us recharge our batteries, so to speak. So if we do this daily and do this often, then we're able to attend to our responsibilities day after day with more concentration and with less stress. We must prioritize hobbies. The next one here with self-care is learning to say no. So this can be a difficult one to do. So if you're anything like me or a people pleaser, it's not always easy to say no. It's not easy to say no to family or to friends, but it is necessary. You don't have to do it all. We live in a culture where we feel the need to occupy every hour of every day, or we feel the need to please everyone all of the time. This is not healthy. When we begin to say no, we give ourselves more time to get involved in other things that we care about, our passion, our goals, and we give ourselves the opportunity to reach our full potential. Saying no also shows others our limits and our boundaries, which are equally important and definitely a conversation for another time. Overall, learning to say no and to say no often helps reduce stress. So it may seem like a difficult thing to do at first, but with practice and with time, you'll do it so naturally that you won't even realize it. Now, it's important to remember that there are also appropriate ways to say no, right? You can do so in a kindly manner. So, for example, I'm sorry, I can't take you to run errands today. I have such a busy schedule, instead of trying to fit that person into your schedule. Or, I'm sorry, I can't lend you money this time. I really need it myself. So, it can be just a simple decline in that way. So, those are 6 areas of self care that we can start working on today to increase our overall well being. There are many more out there. Feel free to research them, but these are the 6 that I chose to focus on today. Stress. Like I mentioned earlier, COVID-19 has changed our lives drastically. As a result, our stress levels have increased. This includes emotional stress due to quarantine and social distancing, perhaps friends or loved ones becoming infected with the virus, loss of loved ones, or loss of the liberties that we once had, like going out to eat with friends and family without thinking twice about it. It also includes financial stress due to the loss of employment or reduction in work hours, and also stress that stems from the unexpected. So, as human beings, we thrive on predictability. Nowadays, much has changed, and we have been faced with many unpredictable things. And so, this includes, as you can see here on the slide, distance learning, working from home, and quarantine or social distancing. So, life changed, and 2020 has been a tough year thus far. It's affected us all in different ways. So next, I'm going to speak specifically on coping skills for managing stress in a healthy way. So of course, there are unhealthy ways, right? But we're focusing on the healthy ways because remember, this presentation is all about improving overall well-being and self-care. So when I speak to patients who are overly stressed and they explain their stressors to me, I have them make a list, kind of like the one you see on the screen here. So I have them on one side write down the stressors that they identify as being within their control. And then on the other side, I have them make a list of the stressors that they identify as outside of their control. And if you can see here, here's an example of that list. So some stressors that were identified as within our control include miscommunication with friends and or a coworker, a full or schedule. This is a people pleaser. Tired, fatigue, and with low energy. And so underneath here, you can see the category of planning and taking action. So these make the list of within our control because ideally one could utilize some action or effective coping strategies to deal and potentially resolve these stressors. So for example, effective communication can be used with the stressor of miscommunication with friends and or family. Learning to say no can be used to overcome this full and busy schedule. And prioritizing sleep can essentially help control the tiredness, fatigue, and low energy that one is experiencing and is causing them distress. So then we move on to the other side of this list. So outside of our control, and we've mentioned them earlier, and I'm sure you've heard them a lot already. So distance learning, changes with employment, and social distancing and limitation of the liberties that we once had. So these are categorized as outside of our control because they're inevitable. There's nothing that we can do to change distance learning or change our employment status. Well, yes, we can go out and apply for another job, but in the moment of that employment status change, it's outside of our control. Here is where the first step of acceptance needs to be taken. And so we begin our segment on coping strategies and skills for stress management. So number one, we start with acceptance. So again, the first step in overcoming any type of change is your acceptance. So acceptance does not mean that you approve or that you are okay with this change. But until you stop resisting the inevitable, this change that you can't control will just continue to make you feel stressed, angry, and you'll continue to be negatively affected by it. When we practice acceptance, we can continue with our lives. We can move on and focus on our goals and better focus on the things that we can control. So, a little more about acceptance. It refers to a healthier way of thinking during situations in which we can't control. So, instead of focusing on how you would like something to be different, you will recognize and accept the problem or situation as is. So for example, you find out that you weren't accepted for the job that you felt you were the best candidate for. The typical way of thinking would be, this isn't fair, I was the best one there, they can't do this to me. The acceptance way of thinking would be, you know what, it's frustrating that I didn't get the job, but I accept that they felt someone else would be a better fit. So that's an example of acceptance here, and it's a pretty vague example. But when we practice acceptance, we become more in control over our emotions and our mental health. Life is unpredictable and dynamic. Changes will always occur. Acceptance will help managing these changes a little better, and you'll be better for it. Strategy number 2, the cognitive model. So the cognitive model refers to our reactions to situations that occur. So the majority of the time, these situations that occur are outside of our control. We can't control what other people say, think, or do, but what they say, think, or do does affect us. So if you refer to the graphic here on the slide, it explains the cognitive model. So a situation occurs, something happens. Then the situation is interpreted. We have thoughts about the situation. A feeling then occurs as a result of that thought, so an emotion. And then finally, an action is taken in response to that emotion. A behavior happens. So while we can't control other people's actions or situations that occur, like the first step here in the diagram, we can control our thoughts about the situation, the second picture in that diagram. So here's an example. So the situation is a colleague who I'm usually cordial with passes by without saying hello. The automatic thought is, what did I do? Why is she mad at me? The emotion that follows suit is, now I feel hurt or offended. The action that follows is then, I can't stop thinking about the situation, so rumination. Next time, perhaps I act coldly towards my colleague, or I take out my frustration at home with loved ones. That's not fun. So we take into consideration the cognitive model. Now we take into control our thoughts, how we interpret the situation. So the same situation occurs, a colleague passes by without greeting you. The alternate thought is, well, maybe she didn't realize I was there, or maybe she has a lot on her mind right now. So now the emotion that follows isn't hurt or offended, but rather neutral or unaffected. And then the action that follows is, I don't pay the situation any more attention. I'm cordial with my colleague as normal, and I don't take out that frustration at home. Notice the difference? So next time you're faced with an uncomfortable situation, try to look at the situation more positively or realistically. try to look at it alternatively. And it might change how you think about the situation, and you might find yourself less affected negatively. We move on to number 3, which is mindfulness. So, mindfulness refers to being in the present moment, being self aware without thinking about your past or thinking or worrying about your future or your thoughts. So, for example, many times we run on autopilot. We brush our teeth while at the same time trying to find our car keys. Or we sit down and watch TV, and before we know it, we've pretty much eaten the whole bag of potato chips. So, practicing mindfulness helps us to focus on what's happening right here, right now. This is how you practice it. So, 1, you find a relaxing and comfortable place. 2, you find the appropriate time, either in the morning, when you wake up, at night before bed, or during the day when you're able to separate from what you are doing. 5 minutes is enough to practice mindfulness. So then step number 3, you straighten your back, you close your eyes, and you just breathe deeply. You focus on your breathing and on your body. You will note that various thoughts are going to come to your mind. All at the same time, this is okay, this is normal. It's kind of like the second picture here on the slide. So little by little, you let your thoughts go. Become an observer of your thoughts and don't absorb them. Don't judge them. Then you return to the present moment and you focus on what's in front of you, your breathing and your body. So you might have to do this a lot during mindfulness. That's okay. When you notice that you're getting caught up in one certain thought, you redirect your attention to your breathing again and you let that thought float away. So you continue practicing mindfulness daily, and it will help you feel more at peace and with more tranquility. Mindfulness also helps reduce stress, improve our overall focus and concentration, and it also helps in regulating emotions. So then we continue with one of my favorites, which is deep breathing. So I'm sure it's happened to all of us where we are faced with something stressful, something unpredicted that causes us to feel anxious. We begin to breathe rapidly, our cardiac rhythm increases, our muscles tense up, we begin to sweat, or we become fearful. This is called the sympathetic nervous system. This is our fight or flight response, if you guys have heard that before. It's our stress reaction. The opposite of this is called the parasympathetic nervous system. So this inhibits the body from overworking and restores the body to a calm and composed state. Our breathing becomes more profound and slow, and anxiety goes away. How do we get there? Deep breathing. So there's a science behind this. So if you look here on the graphic on the slide, it shows how to effectively practice deep breathing. So you inhale through your nose slowly for 4 seconds. You then hold that breath for 4 seconds, and then you exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 seconds. The idea here is slow, relaxed breathing. If you place your hand on your abdomen, when you breathe, that hand should go up because it'll be a sign that you're doing it right if your hand goes up with your belly while you're breathing. Okay, I want to practice a couple of these here together. So if you don't get anything else from this presentation, I want you to learn how to practice deep breathing correctly. So we'll do 3 rounds of deep breathing. I will count and we will start on the count of 3. Remember, inhale through the nose 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, exhale through your mouth all slowly for 6 seconds. We'll start on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good job. You did it. So hopefully you found it relaxing and calming. But if you didn't, that's normal too. And if you didn't, it's because you just need a little more practice. And again, this is very, very normal. It's sometimes hard to do because we don't think about breathing, but that's why it's so effective, because it focuses our attention on our breaths instead of what's causing us stress. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a science behind it. It actually helps calm the nervousness and the anxiousness that is occurring in our body, those physical symptoms of stress. So let's see, one of the reasons why I really like deep breathing is that it's so portable. You can use it whenever, wherever, you can do it discreetly, and it's very, very effective. So it's recommended to practice deep breathing at minimum for 2 minutes, but 5 to 10 minutes is ideal. So if you have some time, put on that timer on the phone and try it. It actually also helps to get to sleep a little faster too. So this is something you can share with the children at home also, and you might see some really good benefits from deep breathing. We continue here with number 5, which are positive affirmations. So if you notice that you have negative thoughts of self or have low self-esteem, try using positive affirmations. So this includes replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. So for example, I am strong enough versus I'm not strong enough, or I can do it versus I can't do it. Or it can also include any time that you have negative thoughts of self or are very critical with yourself, make a mental note to not repeat this. Positive affirmations could also include making a list of your positive traits or your positive attributes. So it's very normal in society today. We can receive 9 comments about ourselves and 1 negative critical criticism, and we're stuck on the negative comment that we received instead of all the positives. It's just in our nature for some reason. So it's time to put forth those positive qualities and positive traits that you see within yourself. What I also recommend doing is writing those positive attributes on post-it notes, or just in general, writing positive messages to yourself on post-it notes and put them all over your room or your home. You can put them on your door, put them on your mirror, places that you frequent often. So this will do one of 2 things. One, you'll receive happy messages throughout the day, and who doesn't like that? But also number 2, it kind of reconditions your brain to focus more on these positive traits and positive qualities that often go unnoticed, or we tend to not acknowledge them as often. So positive affirmations are also very, very important. They help increase self-esteem, help us maintain motivation to get us closer to our goals, and they can also help lower stress, increase overall well-being, but equally important, they help open our minds to incorporating positivity or more positivity into our lives. We move on to number 6, the 5 senses. So this is a grounding technique. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with grounding techniques, but again, there's some information on the last slide in this presentation on grounding techniques. So grounding techniques help control our intense emotional experiences, and they help us regain mental focus. So they work by focusing our attention to the present moment and bring attention back to reality. Because oftentimes when we're stressed out, we're either focusing too much on something that's happened in our past and we can't get over it, or we're too worried and anxious about what might happen in the future. None of that has to do with the present moment. So grounding techniques help bring us back into that present moment. So let's see. I want to explain a little bit how to do the 5 senses. Okay, so we'll start with, what are 5 things that you can see? So for example, there is that mirror with gold trim around the border. There is a multicolor carpet with colors of red, blue, and gray, so on and so forth. You describe 5 things that you can see. What are 4 things that you can feel or touch? So if you're standing, it's how do my feet feel on the ground right now? Is the ground soft? Is the ground hard? If you're sitting, it's how does my body feel in this chair? Is it comfortable, uncomfortable? Is it warm? Or you can reach out and touch a surface, and then you detail how that surface feels. Is it rough, smooth, warm, cold? Then you move on to what are 3 things I can hear? What are 2 things I can smell? And finally, what is 1 thing I can taste? So if you happen to have a piece of candy or some gum, you pop that in your mouth and you start noticing the flavors and the texture of that gum or that candy in your mouth. So you do this until you feel better and you feel less stressed and less anxious. So you might have to repeat it a lot. I have many people who only repeat the 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, and 3 things you can hear. Only because sometimes smell and taste is a little hard, but you keep repeating them. And the key here is during this coping skill, it's important to observe the details that we generally ignore and don't notice, right? So you're tapping into your senses and you're observing in detail the things you can see, in detail the things you can feel, the things you can hear, smell, and taste. So this is also very, very effective. We continue here with gratitude. So practicing gratitude regularly has been shown to increase positive emotions and improve well-being. Gratitudes block toxic emotions. That's why they're so great. So some of these toxic emotions may include regret, anger, envy, resentment, or depression. Gratitude helps us recover faster and be less bothered by mental health symptoms. And it can help you feel better about your position in life. So, how do we do it? So, number 1, you can keep a gratitude journal where you write about 3 good, fun, or exciting things that have happened to you or things that you're grateful for. There are some journals out there that have gratitude prompts where it just prompts you to answer a question and it's all associated with gratitude. But you can also do this on your own in a simple note without the aid of prompts. It's equally effective. You can write down about people, things, or experiences that you're grateful for in detail. The detail piece is really important. It's recommended to write about 2 times per week for about 10 to 20 minutes. So that is gratitude. So those are the 7 strategies that can be used immediately to cope with and manage stress more effectively. And they can help improve overall well-being. I want to end this presentation talking about the cycle of anxiety. So many of us try to avoid our stress or anxiety because it produces or it provides us with instant relief, right? But this isn't effective long term. And I'll get into that in a moment. So stress is inevitable. It's going to happen, right? When I talk about stress with my patients, I also reiterate that stress and anxiety are normal feelings. They're normal emotions, just like being happy and being excited and being sad are normal. They're not always comfortable, that's for sure. But resisting stress or resisting the inevitable and avoiding it can just lead to more problems. And that's never fun. So here, we take a look at the slide here and it depicts that cycle of anxiety. So we start from the top. So anxiety. An anxiety producing situation leads to uncomfortable symptoms such as worry, fear, a racing heart, sweaty, or feeling of being overwhelmed. It's followed by avoidance. The uncomfortable symptoms are controlled by avoiding the anxiety-producing situation. Some examples of this avoidance may include skipping class to avoid a presentation, the use of drugs or alcohol to numb feelings, or procrastinating on challenging tasks. That is then followed by avoidance is then followed by short-term relief of anxiety. So avoidance of the anxiety-producing situation gives an immediate sense of relief. The symptoms of anxiety lessen, but only temporarily. Long-term anxiety growth. So the fear that initially led to avoidance worsens. The fear worsens, the anxiety worsens. And the brain then learns that when the anxiety producing situation is avoided, the symptoms go away. As a result, though, the symptoms of anxiety will be worse the next time, and avoidance is more likely. So that is the vicious cycle of anxiety. And again, I do have that info sheet available at the end for those of you who'd like to take a better look at it. So that's the vicious cycle of anxiety. And that's why it's important to utilize effective and healthy coping skills to address stressors. And we just talked about 7. So effective coping skills coupled with prioritizing self-care will help improve overall well-being. Thank you all for listening in on my presentation. I'm hoping that you found it beneficial. Here are some resources, which will also be available on the website. And here's kind of a summary of what we talked about, some self-care tips, and the 7 coping skills for stress. And then those are the exercises that I referred to earlier. So you can see we have many of the coping strategies that we discussed today. They will be available for you who would like to learn a little more. Okay, so now we're going to open the Q&A segment, and I'm going to stop my share now so that I can read the questions that have come in. So if you haven't already, we have some questions here that we're going to get to, but if you haven't already, go ahead and write any questions that you might have, anything else that you're curious about, any other areas of mental health, or any clarifications. Okay, so we referred to earlier, one of the attendees mentioned wanting to learn more about stress management, so I hope that this topic suffice. I'm curious about what we can do to help support our children and their mental health. And again, we refer back to the fact that us adults, us parents, utilizing these healthy skills and healthy habits, we can mirror these things, these healthy habits to our children, so they in effect learn from our healthy ways of being. So that's one direct way. And if you want any more specifics, feel free to write in there. Okay, and then issues with distractions and inability to move child to a different location in the home. Let's see. So issues with distraction. So distraction, and it's kind of hard because I don't know the specifics going on here, but distraction can definitely be problematic. And so what I would do in that situation is sit down with your child and kind of talk through and maybe ask them, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And I would say as much as possible, try to find the same location in the home. What comes to mind right now is maybe with e-learning. And what I would recommend if that child doesn't have already, having the same workspace, the same work area, and not changing that, or at least trying not to as much as possible. Keeping it consistent is going to be key. But yeah, distractions are often very tough. So I would sit down and maybe just have a conversation with your child to see what their needs might be and what else might help with the issue of distraction. Okay, so we have another comment or question here. Separation anxiety in child since pandemic began. I am unable to move around the home without the child needing to be by my side every second. Yes, so that is tough. And I feel like it's very common among parents these days experiencing separation anxiety from the children. So one thing to keep in mind, which obviously, is obvious and we're all encountering that, is that obviously the child is also going through some changes here. So it's important to acknowledge that they're also affected by this. And I think in this specific situation, that child is expressing it outwardly by being overly attached. So often what helps with any issues of separation anxiety are talking with the child and maybe having a plan for when separation is going to happen. So sitting down and talking and coming up with a plan and saying, hey, I'm going to just be in the next room. Why don't we try this out? Why don't we try for 2 minutes being separated? Or you can even start with like 30 seconds and then work your way up. What the child needs is to know that during times of separation, they're going to okay and they're going to be safe, but we need to instill that in them. And so oftentimes practicing separation in the home could be helpful, but you start small. So literally maybe you start with 30 seconds or a minute, and then the brain, that child then realizes, okay, nothing bad happens when we're separated for 30 seconds, and then they're more willing to try 1 minute, and then 2 minutes, and then 3 minutes, and then that time increases. So that's often how separation anxiety in children is usually addressed therapeutically. So I'm hoping that helps. It's definitely a starting point. We had someone comment here that saying no is therapeutic for me. Yes, it is very therapeutic. And sometimes we don't reap those benefits right away because it's hard to do. And sometimes feelings of guilt come from saying no. But at the end of the day, you always have to reflect back on your mission. Why are you saying no? It's not out of malice. It's not, because you want to anger the other person. It's because you want to help yourself. And like I mentioned earlier, saying no shows your limits and your boundaries, right? And when people are more aware of your limits and your boundaries, they're more inclined to respect them. And so saying no is a great way of establishing that limit and that boundary. So good. I'm glad that the attendee commented that, because it is very therapeutic. All right. Any other questions out there regarding mental health, or even just specific situations that you're going through in the home that I might be able to help a little bit with here?
I just wanted to say, I know that there are people that, have added in the questions. I'm going to give my feedback. I was taking notes during the presentation, and just my takeaways are, that our kids mirror our healthy habits. And I mean, just even taking the time, like for our parents or our staff, just any individual right now, just taking the time to be here, to be present in this moment, it kind of just shows, that how important it is and how it affects us and, or somebody that we know. So,
Absolutely.
Again, our kids mirror our healthy habits. Definitely a strong believer of that. They're constantly watching. They're constantly watching you.
Absolutely.
Prioritizing time for yourself, whatever that may look like. That was another takeaway for me. Meditating, a cup of coffee in the morning, mindful, present. It helps us to focus on what's happening now and regulating emotions. I love the positive affirmations and gratitude. I'm just very, very big on that gratitude part.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
absolutely. And, the thing with gratitudes, and it's interesting because I did attend a seminar a few days ago where it mentioned that if you with gratitudes, if you practice more gratitude and you incorporate more positive emotions into your life, like it's hard to be envious and happy at the same time, right? So it's like, choose to be happy so that those negative emotions can't intrude in our lives, right? Because you can't be the opposite emotions at the same time, right? You can only be one. And so continue to strive for the gratitude emotion, continue to strive for happiness, for, pride, like instead of being envious, let that person be happy for that person, right? Take pride in what that person has accomplished. So yeah, gratitude is definitely a big one. And I think we're going to see resurfacing pretty soon in our culture too. The other thing I wanted to mention with these coping skills for stress, I know today the presentation was geared towards parents, but these can all be modified for children. For example, mindfulness. There is also and you can just Google it, like kid yoga. There are certain stretches children can do that help them be in the present moment, right? Where they do like the downward facing dog, or they do certain type of yoga poses, but because there's a technique to them, they're only focused on trying to do that pose. And then kids often like thrive on competition. So then you make it a competition, right? Like, okay, last time you were able to nail that yoga pose in 30 seconds. Let's see if you can beat that time now. Like, make it competitive. Or if you're, maybe this can help a little bit with the comment about the kid who's easily distracted. Lots of times physical activity and exercise is the go-to, right? So oftentimes I recommend to the parents of kids who are overly anxious, who might have ADHD, or who are just distracted often, to take a break from whatever it is they're doing, because distraction often comes from boredom. And you just kind of take a little break, and then you tell them, okay, hey, how many jumping jacks can you do in 30 seconds? Or how many push-ups can you do in 30 seconds? Or, you know, I'm trying to think of other, like burpees. Like, you just get them physically activated. One, it helps tire them out, but two, it's a natural distraction because now they're just focused on trying to complete that goal, and it's fun for them. And then they're able to then redirect into the task at hand with a little more motivation. So I would definitely say try that out too. If you're faced with a child who's a little inattentive and distracted easily, get them move their bodies, right? How many push-ups can you do in 10 seconds? Great, you did 5. Let's see if next time you can do 6. But right now, why don't you go work on that project for another 5 or 10 minutes? So that's also a really big takeaway from that. So same thing, deep breathing. Deep breathing can be, the child can use deep breathing, a child can use the 5 senses, talking with children about acceptance, talking to them about gratitude, right? Writing a gratitude letter to someone who they miss or to someone who they're grateful for is a really great exercise to start incorporating more positivity into their lives. Children are also very, very affected during this time. So feel free to model these exercises and strategies to your children in your home, any age, kids, children, adolescents, teenagers. Great. Let's see. Daisy, do you see any questions coming in? I don't on my end. I just want to be sure.
No, but I do want to
Okay.
say, because I know that the presentation was 6 to 7:15. Um,
Mhm.
Maria, like when we're done, we're still going to allow time for questions. We still have a
For
couple
sure.
more minutes, but there
Mhm.
is going to be a survey on the last slide that I would just like. It's short. It's just 3 questions. And that's just for us as a school district to know, like, was this beneficial for you? And just any other topics that you would like us to address. I know that this presentation, first we gave it as part of our bilingual parent advisory committee meetings, and we wanted to provide it in English as well. And, you know, just being able to have this as a resource to care for our parents and our all of our staff members, essentially. But yeah, so, you know, when we're done, just there's a short survey on the PowerPoint, which is also on our website under Parents and Community, under the Community Liaison tab. You can find it there as well. But yes, feel free to still add questions or comments into the chat for Maria. We still have a couple more minutes. Another thing, one of my takeaways, my last one that I'm going to say, is just breaking the stigmas of talking about mental health, and just, you know, kind of how you said, a big takeaway also was resisting or avoiding stress, or acknowledging that you're stressed out or that you're frustrated kind of will worsen it, I guess. You know, it's okay to have these conversations at home or to reach out for help. And I think that was just one of the main purposes to why we had this presentation available as well.
Yeah, the stigma with mental health unfortunately still exists. I feel like mental health is getting more recognition during this time of high stress, but there's still a huge stigma attached to it, and getting help is still often, unfortunately, looked down upon. But there are resources out there, right? So if like a typical one-on-one therapy session isn't for you, there's group settings out there, but there's also resources, you know, on the internet. And now, you know, we're doing telehealth, so there's opportunity to even do therapy over the phone where you don't necessarily have to be seen person to person. I think the effectiveness of that, there's still research out there that needs to be done, but it helps right now, right? Right now we're in crisis mode. And if it just helps to talk someone over the phone, do it. So I would definitely encourage people to take charge of their mental health and address those needs as they arise. The other piece with resisting anxiety, that cycle of anxiety exists, and I pull that diagram out, I think at least 10 times a day. And I work my patients through that, and they're able to identify, okay, wow, like this is why I'm not getting better. It's because I continue to ignore this. Yes, I get temporary relief, but it doesn't resolve. It's a Band-Aid. It doesn't resolve the issue or the situation. So again, those effective coping strategies that I covered earlier, those 7 would be helpful, but there's more out there too. And I mentioned a little bit of effective communication in my presentation. That's also a key strategy. One, it's just a great skill to have, but it's also a great strategy for combating and managing stress and anxiety. The other piece I want to mention that I've been having conversations with patients lately when it comes to stress and anxiety is that, one, it's a normal feeling to have. It's a normal emotion to experience, just like being excited and just like being happy. It's uncomfortable, but it's normal. But if we start looking at stress and anxiety in a different way, and I'll explain that way in a moment here, we'll be lifted from the negative effects of anxiety and stress. So for example, someone had told me, they're really anxious with school. They continue to second guess themselves. This is a high schooler. She actually, well, I think she goes to Winnetka High School. So she continues to be stressed about time management. She second guesses herself and doubts herself. And this is a girl who is on top of her game. Like, she's doing really well despite e-learning. She'd rather be in person. And she practices time management very effectively. She'll look at her schedule the beginning of the week and set aside time to address every subject, school subject, or every homework assignment that she has, but she still has this stress and anxiety, and she has physical symptoms of it. She'll have panic attacks because she feels that she's not going to do well in school, despite the obvious. She's doing very well. So we tap into that. So I made her, I asked her to look at her anxiety in a different way. So instead of looking at it in a negative way, you look at it in the way of, okay, I'm stressed and I'm anxious over school because school is important to me, right? So then we talk about her values. She valued education, values college, and she values having options. So she knows that if she does well in school right now, she'll have options. She doesn't know what she wants to do yet. She doesn't know which school, but she'll have options. Those are her values. That's why she's anxious. So instead of looking at stress and anxiety in a negative way, you look at it as, okay, why am I anxious and nervous about this? Oh, it's because it's important to me. It's because it's speaking to my values. So now you start looking at stress and anxiety in that way, and it takes away a little bit of that negativity. And you start thinking, well, it's tapping into my values, and my values are a beautiful thing. So if we start looking at anxiety and stress in that way, we'll be lifted from the negative and physical symptoms of anxiety and stress. And I can go on and on about that, but that's another takeaway that I'd like the audience to have, is looking at stress through a different lens, looking at it as, wow, I'm so worried and stressed about this because this is so important to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't care. So looking at it through that light might help lift those physical symptoms and actually bring some relief about the anxiety and the stress that one is experiencing. And then again, and I sound like a recorder here, then you utilize the strategies for managing anxiety and managing stress.
Thank you. That was a really good way to think about it, and just that into something positive, like,
yeah. Yeah, our values are never a bad thing. So
there are no questions or comments.
Okay.
This video, or this presentation is being recorded. I will be sure to also email it to all of our staff, just so that they have it as a resource if you want to go back and if there's something that you missed. But I mean, just so that it's there as well, I will be sharing it. And the presentation, again, is on our website right now. And then we'll just like stay on maybe like a couple more minutes. Maria, if you could just like share the screen, so that I think that they're able to look Are they able to click the
I'm
search?
not sure. I don't think so.
Uh,
Um,
okay, it's okay. I'll probably send a.
yeah, but I'll just screen share real quick.
There is another question. Let's see. I wanted to ask, okay, to remind parents to always reach out to student teachers if they're noticing any changes in their student behavior as well. Yes, as a school district, not just because I work there, but I strongly believe I've seen it firsthand. Our teachers go above and beyond instructional time. They really care for the emotional well-being of our students. So yes, thank you so much for that reminder and putting that in the chat. Just always reach out to your teachers if you see any you're thinking, especially during that time, during this time as well.
Yeah, I think teachers right now are also a great resource for any type of struggles at all that you're noticing. Um, as parents, are definitely a great resource to go to for sure.
I think it's the last.
Yeah.
I don't
Nope.
think you're able to click on it. It's okay. I'll share it. It'll be
Yeah.
it's on the website as a PDF. So if you guys are able to go to our website, which is dist76.org, under Parents and Community, Community Liaison, you can find the presentation there in Spanish and in English. The Spanish session for this is also on our website in case you would like to share that with any of your parents at any time. One more comment that just says, thank you, ladies.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, yeah, Daisy, thank you again for the opportunity of having me on. I know we did this 3 weeks ago in Spanish, and I think it was also something that was really helpful to the audience. And so I was really happy to be able to do it again. So thank you for the opportunity of inviting me.
No, thank you. And thank you to everybody who attended. I see parents on here. I see staff members. Some of our administration is on here. And I guess my gratitude is just thank you for supporting and being a part of this. Because again, I mean, if it's important to you, it's important to me, and it's important for the well-being for our students, because essentially that's, we work every day for their success at school and just personally as they get older. So a sincere thank you to you, Maria, and to Eric Hansen, and to everybody who attended today.
Yeah, thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know it's a Wednesday evening, but hopefully you were able to take away some useful information and to be able to apply it to your daily life and improve your overall well-being. So thank you.
Thank you guys. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Our district website has all of our contact information. This is available as well. And all of our staff is always more than welcome, to answer any questions. We're here for any feedback, comments, to just make the experience at District 76 more pleasurable for everybody. So thank you guys. And thank you, Maria.
Yeah. Good night, guys. Bye.